Hello from the car park of the AXA Training Centre, where we've just been hearing from Jurgen Klopp ahead of the 243rd staging of the Merseyside derby. That is of course taking place at 12:30 on Saturday afternoon at Anfield. Now, plenty to get into from this press conference. Jurgen Klopp had a lot to talk about ahead of this one. And I think the best place to start, the biggest news really, is around the team news and the fitness of the team. Now we'll start with Andy Robertson. Of course, there were huge question marks in terms of how he was going to be after that blow of sustaining a shoulder injury on international duty. You may have seen him coming off after injuring his shoulder against Spain as Scotland were defeated 2-0. There were huge question marks over what would happen next. We didn't expect him to be available for this game, but it was all about his prognosis from that point in, and unfortunately not great news from the manager. He's revealed that Robertson is likely to have to undergo surgery on that shoulder problem. Now, if he'd avoided shoulder surgery, that would have been maybe a shorter timeline in terms of recovery, maybe 3 to 4 weeks, but unfortunately with him undergoing shoulder surgery, my understanding is that it's looking like more 10 to 12 weeks. So a real blow for Liverpool, not just for this game on Saturday against the rivals Everton, but also going forward. Now, it was interesting to hear from the manager in terms of the options he has to replace Robertson in that position. He talks about Kostas Tsimikas, of course. He's the one I would expect to start against Everton on Saturday. But he also talked about his other options he has in that position. Luke Chambers, who's a young player coming through, really highly rated at Anfield. Could be real opportunities for him, perhaps in the Europa League and also the League Cup. He was mentioned specifically by the manager, and also said that Joe Gomez can maybe play out there from time to time. We've not seen that for a while. He last maybe played there, I think, under Brendan Rodgers when he was manager. But it was mentioned as a potential option there. So really interesting to see what Jurgen Klopp does. As I say, I expect it to be Kostas Tsimikas in the short term, but maybe in those cup games, maybe we're going to see some experimentation there, some younger players used in that position, or maybe Joe Gomez being farmed out to a sort of unfamiliar position, a position he hasn't played for a while. Now, in terms of other team news, a boost for Liverpool in that Cody Gakpo is back in training. Jurgen Klopp confirmed that in his press conference today. You'll remember he sustained a knee injury at Tottenham in scoring a goal just before half-time. He had to be brought off at the break, and unfortunately, it's not been too bad of a turnaround for him. He's been able to recover in the international break and he's back in training, so I'd expect him to at least be available to be on the bench in this game. In terms of other injuries, Thiago, Alcantara and Stefan Bajcetic, they're still having problems in terms of their comeback from injury, unfortunately, so neither of them will be available for this one. Both underwent surgery at the back end of last season and still not sort of back to full availability. Stefan Bajcetic came in for one game in the Europa League, but he suffered a setback shortly after that, and Thiago himself also battling a setback, so unfortunately neither of those players are ready for this one. We'll have to see how their recovery goes in terms of how they're available in the long term. There's also bad news in terms of another attacker, Ben Doak. I'm not sure how much of a role he would have played in the Merseyside derby, maybe getting some minutes late on, but he sustained a small muscle injury on international duty, so unfortunately he is also out at the moment. Now, one of the big questions in terms of the team selection was what Jurgen Klopp would do with his South American players. Now, if you remember back to after the last international break, Liverpool were also given that dreaded 12:30, the early kick-off directly after an international break. And if you remember back to that game, Luis Diaz and Darwin Nunez both started from the bench because of the travel they had to undergo. But Alexis Allister was thrown into the starting 11, but then had to be brought off at half-time because he put in a really poor and leggy performance, which obviously owed a lot to the travel he'd been undergoing, having represented Argentina during the break. Now, it's been interesting to see Jurgen Klopp talk about that in his press conference today, because he mentioned that there have been some slight tweaks to how Liverpool managed the travel. They were able to get the players back earlier and more efficiently, working with other clubs to do that. And so that could mean that Nunez, Diaz and McAllister are all available to come into the team for this one, despite it being that early kickoff and that really tight turnaround. All three were involved in the session that Liverpool had yesterday, and although that was only a light session, it's good news in terms of hopefully being fully involved today and maybe making themselves available for selection. In terms of Nunez, that's particularly helpful, I think, because he mentioned after the international break that he'd suffered maybe cramps while he was playing for Uruguay. He scored a goal and got an assist in a 2-0 win over Brazil, but said he suffered cramps after that. But hopefully he's fully recovered. He's had the ability to get involved in training today as well, full training, so should make himself available. And hopefully the same with Diaz and McAllister, because absolutely crucial parts of that starting 11, aren't they, at the moment? McAllister is a real question mark for me at the moment. There have been question marks over him being used in that 6, and maybe with that international travel, could we see Endo come in? And people have been sort of scrutinising McAllister's performance in that 6, saying he's maybe not a natural in the way that a Fabinho is, despite the fact he does play there from time to time for Argentina as much as he does for Liverpool. But Jurgen Klopp has kind of shut that down in his press conference today, which I thought was interesting. His reply to a question about McAllister in that role was, of course Maka can play the position, there's no doubt about it. So pretty unequivocal in terms of that. But he did say his main issue really in terms of his selection for this game that's coming up against Everton is that he needs to find the right intensity. So it's not necessarily he's got concerns about McAllister's position or whether he can play as the holder. It's more about, can I put a midfield together that is capable of providing the intensity required to win a Merseyside derby, because we know what these games are like. They are intense, they are physical. So if there's any doubt that McAllister's not going to be ready to be ready for that battle because of the travel that he's undertaken while representing Argentina, then maybe we could see Wataru Endo come in for a start. He was impressive, I thought, in the League Cup a few weeks back. Maybe that was almost his breakout performance for Liverpool, but haven't seen an awful lot of him since. So an interesting one in terms of how Jurgen Klopp goes to that selection, because as he said, he wants intensity for this one. It's going to be an intense game against a team who've had better preparation time, sent away fewer players over the international break. So we'll have to see how that one plays out in terms of the team selection. Really, really looking forward to this game as ever. It's a huge derby and a really good opportunity for Liverpool to build on what's been a good start to the season so far. They're in that top 4, just 3 points off top spot. So can they build from there over the next few fixtures? They've got a kind of fixture schedule coming up. So this is a good opportunity for them to make a good start to that schedule and maybe start climbing the table even further than they are. Now, as ever, I will be at Anfield tomorrow to cover the game, and I'll be bringing you my post-match thoughts as close to the full-time whistle as possible. So if you want to keep across that, please do like and subscribe and follow the channel to keep up to date with that, and I'm sure I will see you very soon.